Hi, everyone. I'm Alexandra Amore. This is It's a Mystery Podcast, and I'm here today with Malcolm Richards. Hi, Malcolm. How are you?
I'm good, Alexandra. How are you doing?
I'm good. We're here today to talk primarily about your two Emily Swanson mystery novels.
Yeah.
And so let me just introduce you to everyone. Cornish-born Malcolm Richards is the author of the psychological mystery novel The Hiding House and the Emily Swanson Mystery Thrillers, a dark and emotionally driven amateur sleuth series. Filled with characters from the sidelines of society, his novels are as much about the protagonists finding themselves as they are about finding the next tightly plotted clue. Malcolm lives in London and has worked as a teacher of young people with emotional and behavioral needs, a teacher of creative writing, and as a copywriter, scriptwriter, and editor. So it's great to have you here today, Malcolm. I love that you say that your books are as much about what the characters are going through as about the plot and the mystery. Those are the books I like to read and to write as well. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yes, yeah.
Big into kind of character-driven stories, definitely.
Exactly. So tell us a little bit about Emily. And in the first, I read the description of the first book, and I loved that it said she's a troubled young teacher who has moved to London. So as soon as I read that, I thought, ooh, tell me more.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah. I think the crux of the first book is that there are two mysteries going on. One very much centered around Emily and who she is and where she came from, and the driving mystery through the novel of the missing tenant that she's trying to find. But so if I rewind a little bit, Emily is from the countryside. She comes from a small village, and she's just moved to London. And the mystery around her is the fact that she's moved there with not knowing anyone, and she has no job, and no one seems to know anything about her. And she moves into this apartment building called the Holmeswood, where she meets her neighbour Jerome and another neighbour, an older lady called Harriet. And while she moves into this flat, she finds out that the former tenant has gone missing. Most people think that she's run away or left her violent husband, but Emily's not so sure. There are a few things that she finds in the apartment and a few other things that she learns that might say otherwise. And so she becomes very curious in her nature, that she was a very curious person, and becomes embroiled in this mystery, and manages to get Jerome embroiled in this mystery as well. And they kind of form a sort of duo. But it kind of goes very wrong for her, very quickly and dangerously. And yeah, so while that's happening, like I said, there's the mystery around her, and Jerome is wondering, why is she so guarded? Why doesn't she talk about her past? Why is she not keen to let people get close to her? So, and those two mysteries become entwined, and it's really hard to talk about the story without not talking about the story, because there's so many twists and there's so many turns, and what's happened to Emily in the past is very sort of integral to her solving this other mystery. So it's kind of like, it's one of those stories, the less you know, the better.
Okay, good, yeah. Well, you had me hooked with the description. It does sound really interesting. And then the second book, which we were just talking about before we came online, was just released yesterday. And for those people who are listening, that was the last week of February, because that's when we're recording this. And so in that one, Emily goes to I love this, a digital retreat. Is that what you called it?
Digital detox retreat.
Digital detox, right?
Yeah.
So she's been on her computer too much, wants a break.
Yeah, well, I think without talking too much about the what happens in the end of the first one, it's set 2 months after. So although it's a standalone story, and all the stories I'm planning for Emily are kind of standalone, but they're all kind of connected. One leads into another. Mm-hmm. So in Cruel Minds, which is the book that came out yesterday, it's set 2 months after Lost Lives, and the what's happened to her has left her feeling slightly frazzled, shall we say. She's kind of suffering a little bit of post-traumatic stress. She's having nightmares, she can't sleep, and she just wants to get away from London and get away from people and just go somewhere that's really quiet and peaceful. And Jerome suggests trying a retreat, which she's never done before. And she's experimenting a little bit with meditation, and she's kind of having therapy at this point. And so she goes to Meadow Pines, which is a digital detox retreat where there are no phones, no computers, no internet allowed, nothing. So you're in the middle of a new forest, surrounded by miles of trees with nothing to do apart from reconnect with yourself. And while she's there, one of the other guests winds up dead. And so, yeah, another mystery for her to solve.
To solve. Oh, good. And what was I going to ask? Oh, it's gone out of my head. There was something there about the plot. And what's it like for you writing from the point of view of a woman? So you have 2 other books in addition to the Emily Swanson pair. And one of them is about children, The Hiding House. And the other one is a novella, Walking After Midnight. And I noticed that's from the point of view of women as well. So tell us a little bit about that, what that's like for you.
I grew up in a house of women, and I've grown up surrounded by women. And I'm one of 4 children, and I'm the only boy.
Okay.
And so I'm the second oldest in the siblings, but and my mom was a very sort of strong character in my life, and my dad. But like when I was younger, I guess my dad was working away a lot, so it was just me and my mom and my sisters, and I kind of grew up in that environment, and I've always had a very strong connection with women in that way, I guess. As I kind of, I think of myself as a feminist and sort of promoting equal rights for women and stuff, and I've always kind of been like that, or held those beliefs, because I've grown up in a predominantly female environment where I see women struggle every day, and with kind of getting what they deserve, equal rights, etc. I guess I find that I identify with women better in some ways, and so I find female characters a lot easier to write in some ways. I think I find them more interesting to write.
Yeah.
I write about. In the sense that with like a lot of male characters, it's all a lot of bravado, and it's all like tough guys and stuff, and I don't find that very interesting.
Okay.
And and that's why it's quite fun to write Jerome as well, because he's not like that at all.
Okay.
He's quite sensitive, and he's but funny, and he uses his humor as like his strength, and but he's sensitive, and he is like not a typical bloke guy, sort of thing. So yeah, I don't know. I quite enjoy writing female characters, and my editor, who's also one of my oldest friends, is she's also an excellent writer, but she's really good at kind of keeping me on track with Emily and making sure that she's believable and that her motivations are believable and her actions are believable. So she won't hold back in telling me she wouldn't do this, or even down to she wouldn't wear that.
Yeah.
We had a lengthy discussion in book 1 about I think I had him wearing a knitted hat, which my editor thought was just far too what's the word I'm looking for? Like frumpy and just plain. She's like, no, she's your heroine. She doesn't need an old knitted hat. So, yeah, she keeps me in check.
Oh, good. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Did you have a woman who could give you feedback? Who could read early drafts? So that's yeah.
Yeah, and my mum reads them, my sisters read them. A lot of female friends that read them, and generally I've had no complaints so far about it not being a believable portrayal or characterization. I think so. I think people find Emily quite interesting when they first meet her because she's not the easiest character to get to know or to empathize with, really, because of the mystery surrounding her, and because she is so close guarded. It's very difficult to kind of empathize with her, I suppose, until you find out what's happened to her, until you kind of get to know, until she opens up and you get to know her and get to kind of care about her. Yeah. So, and I found that writing her as well. I was very worried that people wouldn't like her at first.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because I thought she was kind of, like I said, kind of shut down. And it wasn't until towards the end, and I really worked really hard to make her sort of more open and likeable towards the end. Once you'd learned what had happened to her, what she'd been through.
Yeah.
No spoilers.
No.
So then by book 2, I worked really hard again to sort of, because she's on a big journey, and I think the whole story arc for her across the series is a journey of self-discovery, and she's going through therapy and she's trying different things out to her whole life is starting over again. So it's been really fascinating to write her, and to kind of try and keep her the empathy there. But I do feel like in book 2, Cruel Minds, she's much more her own person. I think, like in the first book, having Jerome and Harriet and people like that who are much more emotional around her kind of made up for her being so close down, so like the reader could maybe or relate to that sort of emotional side of things.
Yeah. And you're from Cornwall originally, correct?
Yeah.
And have moved to London, and Emily's from a small town as well and has moved to London. And I imagine that you share some experiences of being new Londoners, you and Emily. And how much of a character in the book does London play?
In the first book, it plays quite a big character, I think. Emily finds it very difficult when she's first there. She's from, actually, when you get to book 2, you find out that she's actually from Cornwall as well.
Okay.
But London's quite a big character in the first one in the sense of locations. She gets to travel around a little bit, maybe not to all of the sort of sightseeing places, but she certainly gets to travel around a few places you might not necessarily have heard of unless you live in London. Or a bit more familiar, and she gets to travel outside as well. But I think it's interesting because her battle with living with London is quite sort of a bit of a metaphor in the book, I suppose, about her own battles with coming into a new life and things, and the difficulty of it. It's very loud. There are millions of people, and for me, when I first moved to London, which was a long time ago now, I've been here since '97.
Oh, wow.
So I've been here a long time. But I remember moving here and from Penzance, which is a population of a few thousand people, to a population of several million. It's quite overwhelming. And it took me a long time to get used to it. And now I'm here, and I've been here for a long, long time. I find the longer I live here now, the further I move out. And now I'm kind of living in southeast London and like barely London, and I quite like that. But I think with Emily, she's going through that initial sort of trauma, I think you would call it, that some people go through when they first move to London, because it is so big and it's so overwhelming, and it's so noisy.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then you mentioned too that nature is really important to you.
Yeah.
And so it kind of makes sense that in the second book, Cruel Minds, she's out in the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. The forest is one of my favourite places to be. Where I grew up, it was a small fishing town, but it was right on the edge of the countryside as well. When I was young with my sisters, we used to go walking in the woods. We'd disappear for hours and it'd be fine. it was the 70s and early 80s. You could do that then.
Yeah.
But you know, and growing up in Cornwall, obviously surrounded by nature, it's always been a big thing in my life, and I like to write about it a lot. And so, you know, in my first book, The Hiding House is very much set in that time, or sorry, in that environment, in the forest and the countryside. And again, with book 2 of Emily, Cruel Minds, it's the forest again. And I think it's, for me, it's about peace and quiet, and it's about stillness, and I think that's what Emily's looking for. So it seems quite natural for her to then go somewhere like that in the second book.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm kind of toying with this idea as well, because I'm planning at least 6 books for Emily. I have ideas for most of them, but I have a kind of idea where she'll be alternating. One book will be in the city, one book will be somewhere else in the countryside. Because that keeps it interesting for me, and also I think, you know, just kind of as a gimmick or, you know, branding or whatever, it's quite fun to do something like that. And yeah, and it's good for her as well, I think, because, you know, she starts to like London more in book 2, but she's still indecisive about whether she wants to stay there. So it's good for her to go and try different places out in case she wants to live there.
Yes, right, exactly. Yeah. I'm just looking at my other questions here. Yeah. The one way that you described the books was that they're sort of a mystery thriller hybrid. So they're fast paced, but they have the sort of the clues coming up just like a mystery does. And I like that combination, and along with the sort of psychological development of the character, that must be a lot for you as the author to grapple with.
Yeah, it is. I don't know why I've done this to myself. The first book was, to be honest, the first book, Lost Lives, was supposed to be a standalone. You know, it was supposed to be like a standalone mystery thriller, but then the way it ended, and I really liked the characters and I wanted to continue it. And so then, you know, I've always been a big mystery fan and a thriller fan, but you know, growing up with watching mysteries and reading mysteries, you know, even from like the Hardy Boys and things like that. And I used to love, they used to do a series of kids books called, it was Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators.
Oh,
which
okay.
which I really like. So I you know, I really like mystery, and I wanted to sort of blend the 2 or 3 even the psychological. So you know, and I guess the way I think, like, it's more kind of elements. I think really at the heart of the Emily Swanson series, they are mysteries, but they have elements of thriller. You know, there is running, and there's chasing, and there's, you know, fighting for your life, and you know, people trying to kill you. But it also has the mystery element where she is following a clue, and one clue leads to another, and a bit more is revealed, and a bit more is revealed. And then it has the psychological element, which is really more about Emily's state of mind and her progression of her state of mind. Mm-hmm. So it's quite a lot to juggle. And I think the first book was hard to write, as it was the first book in the series, and you know, I did kind of have it sort of planned out. And it just kind of turned out that way, I guess, that it was a bit mystery, a bit thriller. It wasn't an intentional thing. Mm-hmm. But with book 2 now, and I'm down to start planning. Well, I have started planning book 3. Mm-hmm. Now it's kind of like, well, I've started something now, so I've got to continue with those themes. I mean, like with Cruel Minds, I think it's different from the first one because it's much more of a murder mystery. It's a whodunit, really. Mm. But it does have thriller elements. And there is chasing through the woods and attempted murder, and, you know, and a lot of psychological stuff going on, because, you know, thematically it's about exploring the mind, and it's about exploring sort of healing the mind and recovering from trauma, really.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have the third one planned. Do you know when you might expect it to be out?
Well, I'm hoping again for maybe around sort of end of May, beginning of June. I've set myself a goal of trying to bring a book out in the series every 3 months. Okay. I was a little late with Cruel Minds because Lost Lives came out in November, and I had planned for it to come out in January. But it was my, I think I spent about 18 months writing all the slides, and then I set myself a goal of 3 months for Cruel Minds. That turned into 5 months. But, you live and learn.
Exactly, right? You learn with each book. Yes, yeah. So the third one will be out this year then, May or summertime. Yeah.
My plan for sort of my 2016 plan is to get another 3 books out this year.
Good for you.
So book 3 for Emily is going to be May, June. I'm kind of 2 minds because I really want to start another series as well, another mystery series, which would probably be actually a trilogy, set in a small town, which probably would be set in Cornwall. And I want to do a sort of quite dark murder mystery that's set across 3 books. And I really want to do that, but at the same time, I really want to carry on with Emily. So I think I'm going to get to book 3, and I'm going to see how I feel.
Okay.
But either way, either by the end of the year, we'll have the rest of Emily Swanson, or we'll have another series. And if that happens, then Emily will continue next year. But we'll see. And I'll see what readers think as well, because that's important. Yeah, if people are kind of really wanting more Emily, then I'll give them some more Emily.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Oh, good for you. Well, this has been awesome, Malcolm. Thank you so much for talking to me today. And I tweeted out a few minutes ago that you're my first pirate ever on the show.
You should get the yar then.
Yeah, that's right. The Cornish. Sorry, say that again.
No, I was just saying thank you.
You're so welcome. Yeah, the Cornish pirate from Penzance. I love that little mention on your website.
Yeah, with my pirate tattoos.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So tell everyone where they can find your books and what your website address is.
Sure. Well, you can find Lost Lives at the moment is on all the major platforms. You can actually get it for free on Nook and Kobo and iBooks. It hopefully should be free on Amazon in the next week or so. Cruel Minds is on Amazon at the moment and will be going to the other platforms soon. But you can visit my website, which is malcolmrichardsauthor.com. It's MALCOLM, and Richards has an S on the end. I just have to say it because people spell my name wrong all the time.
Okay.
Okay, so malcolmrichardsauthor.com, and you can actually get Lost Lives for free from my website with a Lost Lives case file, which is a kind of sort of DVD style extras to go along with the book, like a companion piece, just for signing up to my readers group.
Oh, awesome. Okay, for sure. Well, I'll make a note of that in the show notes as well.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. It's been great chatting with you.
Yeah, you too, Alexandra. Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.